This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some important updates to share with you. With the inflation rate high, unemployment low, that's the scenario that economists are saying a recession is coming. I'll give you the response from the White House about that. Pete Buttigieg saying that don't talk about Manchin or the Build Back Better, but I'll give you a Build Back Better update there. COVID cases are supposed to be rising according to Dr. Fauci, but he says no one cares about that. Also, the latest stimulus checks going on in different states, $50 in one state, $1,000 in another, $12,000 in another state, and one state has just approved $2,600 checks, and I'll give you some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a more than mundane Monday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced update, hit the like button down below, and I just published a new book. It's called the 50-Day Gratitude Journal. I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow. If you want to get a free copy, I'm giving out some free copies of this. And also, I missed the last few days because April 9th was my birthday, and I also played in a pickleball tournament this weekend. If you want to check out my video from my pickleball tournament, I'll link to that later on in the video. But next, let's get into the news here. So with fewer cases and less demand, many COVID-19 testing sites are shutting down. So it seems that COVID is starting to phase out with testing sites shutting down. Also, comments like this, a new COVID wave is probably coming and America just doesn't seem to care. So Dr. Fauci talking about the new wave that is probably going to come in the US, but it just seems that it's not really as big of a concern. I think this is part of the phase where it's phasing out and it's not getting as serious as it was before, even if there is an uptick. So if we look at the cases here, we could see that it's just the lowest it's been in about a year right here. So cases are really low, hospitalizations are low. Even if people do catch COVID, it seems like it's not as severe or serious as it was before. So let me know down in the comments below, is this thing over? Seems like a lot of people are getting it, but very mild symptoms of it. Let me know, is it all over? Are we going to live our lives again? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. And then when it comes to the economy, the aftermath of COVID and all that, inflation is hammering the U.S. South and voters who will soon decide some key midterm races. So inflation is still really high, and in the 16-state region in the South, it's 8.4% a year ago compared to the rest of the country, which is a little bit lower on average. Take a look at this video clip right here, given the facts.
Welcome back. Data download time. As Democrats look ahead to November, they see a lot of reasons for worry. But the top concern, likely the economy. And while measuring the country's economic picture right now is complicated, the nation's mood about it, certainly not. In fact, the Consumer Sentiment Index from the University of Michigan is probably the best thing we have to measure where people think the economy is. When Biden took office, it sat at 79. It went up a little bit in sort of B+ territory when the COVID response improved. It is now sitting at 62.8. That is basically a failing grade, if you want. Just before the pandemic hit, February of 2020, this index was sitting at 101. People felt really good about the economy. Now, there are some good signs that the Biden administration will point to when they talk about the economy. The unemployment rate, 6.4% when they took office, now an extraordinarily low 3.6%. We continue to add jobs from the COVID downturn. Look at the stock market. Stock market's up 11% since Biden took office. It's sitting at just over 31,000. As of Friday, it was near 35,000. For what it's worth, the Dow is down for this calendar year from January to now, but up overall. So why is everybody upset about the economy? It's this number, 7.9%. When Biden took office, the inflation rate was sitting at 1.4%. But as we've been digging out from COVID, all this money thrown into the economy, we see what the inflation rate is doing. The question is it going to stop going up? Because this is why folks do not think.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think this inflation rate, as well as all the other data points, are going to affect the midterm elections? Not looking good for the Democrats. Moving on to stimulus, though, what are Democrats doing about it in different states? So Virginia House Democrats proposed $50 payments to car owners instead of gas tax holidays. So some states are going for the gas tax holiday where there's no gas tax for a certain amount of days. Gas tax suspension is another word for it. Other states are choosing to just give out flat-out payments. So residents of this city can receive up to $12,000 in stimulus funds. So Connecticut is no longer accepting rent relief applications. Residents of New Haven can still apply for aid under a separate program. So New Haven, Connecticut, looks like there's some rent relief there, but the state as a whole is not. So it looks like residents could get $1,000 a month there, or $12,000 in assistance. And then Maryland Republican lawmakers fail in attempt to extend gas tax holiday. So I think Maryland was one of the first states to have the gas tax holiday. They tried to extend it by an additional 45 days. Doesn't look like it's the case there. It's going to expire April 16th in just a few days. And then $1,000 stimulus checks for New Mexico residents. So over the following 5 months, most New Mexicans' bank accounts will see a deposit of $500 to $1,500. So this is after they authorized 2 different stimulus check packages this year in New Mexico. So $1,000 for households, surviving spouses, and married couples. And then individuals will get $500 stimulus checks in New Mexico. And then Alaska House approves major increase in state spending, including $2,600 payments to Alaskans. So this is going on in Alaska. It's one, I think, yeah. So it's saying they had a big package there, and it's going for K through 12 schools, tax credits for oil drillers, and $2,600 payments for Alaska residents. So those are basically direct checks, stimulus checks, tax rebates, whatever you want to call it. That's what's going on in Alaska. And then when it comes to the bigger package with stimulus provisions in it, whether it's called the Build Back Better or the Building a Better America, Pete Buttigieg, which is the transportation secretary, deflects criticism of Joe Manchin as the White House tries to revive their economic agenda, saying there's 99 other senators too. But not all the other senators, I guess, are opposing it as much as Joe Manchin. So when asking about Joe Manchin and holding out, so he says, if somebody's holding out on you, going up to them and poking them in the eye is probably not going to help you. So that's what happened the first time around with the Build Back Better. Everybody would have turned their attention on Joe Manchin. All the Democrats, all the media, the entire country, people showing up at his boathouse and everywhere, and his car. And I think this time around, it looks like they're trying to not have that same mess. So the new rule is, the new White House rule, do not talk about Joe Manchin. So they're trying to not anger the tiger. They're trying to make sure that he stays on board, stays happy, doesn't get harassed in the streets. So when it comes to Joe Manchin joining it, though, we're still in the dark. We're hearing news that he has put forth his version of a Build Back Better or Building a Better America, slimmed down version, but we haven't heard anything publicly yet. When it comes to student loan pause will be lifted sometime, Jen Psaki says, most likely after the midterm elections. Also, Jen Psaki was asked about a future recession coming. Jen Psaki is the White House press secretary. Take a look at what she has to say about that.
The economy, the White House touting a very low unemployment number at 3.6%. That's quite remarkable. But Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary, says that we are dangerously behind the curve at the Fed, at least. And he writes that over the past 75 years, every time inflation has exceeded 4% and unemployment has been below 5%, the U.S. economy has gone into recession within 2 years. Today, inflation is north of 6% and unemployment is south of 4%. Deutsche Bank this week was the first big Wall Street firm to come out and say we should prepare for a recession in 2023. Is the White House preparing for a recession?
Well, we're going to constantly monitor our economic data. But what our economic team feels and what the U.S. government economic team feels is that the economy has a very strong basis. Our recovery has been incredibly strong on most measures. We created more jobs last year than any year in American history. The unemployment rate was 3.6% the last time it was measured just a few weeks ago. We also know, though, that costs are too high. That's how people across the country, of course, experience inflation. And we need to take steps to address that. And there are steps the president is taking, from fixing the family glitch to make sure people have lower costs of health care, to even extending the student loan pause to make sure that even as our economy is continuing to recover, we're reducing costs. So we're going to continue to address that. But we feel our economy has a strong basis right now, and we'll continue to monitor. It's very important for the government to do exactly that.
Speaking of student loans, on December 11th of last year, you had said that getting loan repayment back on track was the goal. Let's listen here.
We're still assessing the impact of the Omicron variant, but a smooth transition back into repayment is a high priority for the administration.
So setting aside any questions about moral hazard, if the economy we've got a lot of jobs open, wages are up, they're able to figure out a way to get to 3.6% unemployment, what changed between then and now?
Well, this is something the Department of Education continues to assess. We continue to assess from a policy level. And while the basics of the economy, all that data you mentioned, and I've been talking about, Dana, is very strong, we also know and acknowledge that costs are too high for families across the country. And that's something we need to continue to focus our efforts on. And certainly, while it isn't everybody in the country who has student loans, a lot of people do. And this is a period of time where the Department of Education made the decision to continue to pause repayments, and we'll continue to assess as we get closer to the next deadline in August.
Do you think that if you hold student loan debt right now, that you will ever have to make a payment during the Biden administration?
I suspect that sometime you will, but again, we are going to continue to assess every month, every few months on where things stand, both looking, of course, at COVID, but also economic data and where we need to continue to help give the American people some breathing room.
What are your thoughts on what Jen Psaki has to say? Do you agree, disagree? And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Oh, sorry guys, I didn't see this. Can I tell you something? What I want to do is go to the moon. I need to go to the moon. Never mind. What do you want? Tell me in the comments below and see what you want. If you want to do something, then accomplishment. Do what you want, because that after you get too old to not do what you want. Ooh, bye. The moon. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. So as I mentioned, it was a birthday weekend. Got to spend some time with family. Played in a pickleball tournament. By the way, if you want to see any clips from the pickleball tournament, it was actually a really good game. I wasn't able to record all of them just because it was an indoor place and there was only one bar that I was able to put the camera on one court. So this is the one game. You could click on the screen right here if you want to check it out. It's a pretty good game compared to most other ones that I publish on my Wise Pickleball channel. But yeah, click that if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.